Now, Lewis Hamilton had a frustrating Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix as he was stuck behind Pierre Gasly's Alpha Tauri for the majority of the race. After the race, team principal Toto Wolff even apologised to Hamilton over team radio for giving him an undrivable car. "Hi Lewis, sorry for what you have had to drive today. I know this is undrivable and not what we deserve to score as a result. This was a terrible race. We will come out of this." Former teammate and rival Nico Rosberg, on the other hand, claimed that Wolff's radio message was nothing but a wise psychological move on his part, because the fault ultimately lay with Hamilton, who underperformed significantly when compared to teammate George Russell. Toto was playing the mental game, which is very smart on his behalf. Mercedes are taking the blame themselves, really trying to support Lewis mentally, lifting him up and saying, "Hey Lewis, it's not your doing, it's really on us." That's very smart because it's not quite the truth. Let's not forget that Russell is in P4 with that same car, so Lewis definitely had a big role to play in that poor result this weekend. Russell still managed to get P4 out of it with a brilliant weekend, so there was more in that car. After a weekend in which Hamilton was forced to answer questions about his future with Mercedes, Rosberg believes Wolff must now find a way to keep his star driver hungry. Toto is just trying to lift him up, because it's so important to try and make sure that Lewis keeps that motivation through the whole season. It's important for the team. It's quite easy for Lewis to lose motivation in these kind of situations. Now, the 7-time world champion has had a rough season so far, and his bad luck continued in Imola, where he finished a pointless 13th. Hamilton has dropped to 7th in the driver's standings, a whopping 58 points behind Ferrari Charles Leclerc, and in his mind the thought of a championship bid is out of the question. A weekend to forget, that's for sure. I'm out of it for sure. There's no question about that. But I'll still keep working as hard as I can to try and somehow pull it back together somehow. Yet there was further humiliation when Hamilton was lapped by his arch-rival Max Verstappen, who cruised to victory in a relatively easy fashion. This prompted Red Bull's chief advisor Helmut Marko to jokingly suggest that Hamilton might be reconsidering his decision to stay in the sport. I mean, he was lapped by us. Maybe he's thinking he should have stopped last year. But not everyone is so pessimistic, with teammate George Russell claiming that their disparity in results at Imola was simply due to circumstances, and emphasizing that he's not getting comfortable with his experienced teammate. I think it's just how things fall out sometimes in a race weekend. I made a very strong start. I don't know what happened with him at the start, but we're equally struggling, and when the car is so far out of bed and it's not in the right window, it doesn't really feel like a proper racing car to drive. And especially we're struggling with a tyre warm-up. Friday was 13 degrees and it was just a nightmare to drive. I expect him to come back so strong, and the way he's pushing and motivating the team is inspiring. I'm not getting comfortable with this position because I know what he's capable of. Russell intriguingly suggested that his 3 years with a largely uncompetitive Williams had been good preparation for driving the difficult Mercedes W13, which Hamilton said in Imola was not far off the disastrous 2009 McLaren that he considers the worst of his F1 career. It's just been a really difficult position for us as a team, and perhaps with my struggles at Williams driving very difficult cars, maybe that's helped in some small regard. Q1 and Q2 for us now is massively important, whereas previously for Mercedes that was a breeze. It was almost like a build-up session getting ready for Q3. As I said, Lewis is going to come back incredibly strong, I have no doubt, and he's definitely going to push me all the way. Now, despite the obvious issues with the car, Lewis Hamilton's teammate has finished in the top 5 in each of the 4 races this season and is currently 4th in the championship standings. In terms of results, we're definitely getting the most out of it, and things have definitely fallen our way in these first 4 races. It gives me, and I'm sure it gives the team, confidence that when the car improves, we'll be there to get even more points on the board. But as I said before this weekend, we can't sustain this level of these results if we don't improve the pace of the car. However, while Mercedes continues to struggle, it's Red Bull that surprised everyone at Imola with a car that was clearly faster than the previously dominant Ferrari. Max Verstappen won his second race of the 2022 season in the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, finishing ahead of Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez. It was Red Bull's first 1-2 finish since the 2016 Malaysian Grand Prix, as it took advantage of Ferrari's difficult race on home soil. Red Bull scored 58 out of a possible 59 points during the sprint race weekend and enjoyed an edge over Ferrari for outright pace, which Horner attributed to how the RB18 car worked with the tyres. As we saw in Melbourne, the tyres, there's an operating window, and with the setup this weekend, we got it right. We could see that Charles was struggling a little bit more with the front tyres here than we were, both in yesterday's race, and it was starting to happen in the latter part of today's race. So that just gave us the upper hand, and I think Max was able to manage the race perfectly. Checo was able to build a gap to Charles and manage that gap, and at no point other than one trip across the grass with Checo did we really come under too much pressure. Ferrari F1 boss Mattia Binotto agreed that the team's tyre management was a more noticeable weakness in the race, but believes that the lack of dry practice running may have impacted its understanding of the medium compound used in the race. We have only very little time to set up the car, only one session on Friday, which was completely wet, so very little data to collect on drivers to do even the long run. It's true we had FP2 on Saturday morning, but the feeling is that we have a lack of experience through this weekend when coming to the sprint race. But you're right, that Red Bull did a better job in that respect, so we will certainly review and understand why we couldn't do as well such a good job. The first European round of a season is often a prime time for a team to bring their first upgrade package of the season, but with the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix being the first sprint race weekend of 2022, teams were rightfully hesitant to do so due to the reduced practice time. Red Bull, on the other hand, went against the grain, which appeared to pay off. When asked if Red Bull needed that result after Australia's disappointment, Horner told the media, "Absolutely, we attacked the weekend, we brought a little upgrade. A lot of people said, you shouldn't do that with only one practice session, and we believed in ourselves and it paid off. I think we were unlucky in Australia a couple of weeks ago, but we came within 1 point of a maximum score here this weekend, so it's a great fight back. It was quite a stressful race on the pit wall because of the changing conditions, and there's a lot that can go wrong in those situations. But I thought both Max and Checo did an unbelievable job today." Helmut Marko agreed, praising Red Bull's upgrade package for the team's performance in Italy. The race itself was nerve-wracking for us. It didn't want to stop, but I think you could see with Max that he wasn't stressed at all. It was very easy for him. It paid off that we came up with upgrades despite only one practice session. That's why our head of aerodynamics was on the podium. It's thanks to him that both upgrades worked so well. Now, in both championships, there's still a gap between the two teams, with Charles Leclerc leading Max Verstappen by 27 points in the drivers' standings, and Ferrari leading the constructors' standing by 11 points. Nonetheless, Marko is confident that Red Bull will outpace the prancing horses in terms of development. When asked if he believes Ferrari can keep up with Red Bull's development speed, Marko replied, "I don't think so. What we saw is when we put real pressure on them and they are making mistakes. It's a good sporting and friendly competition between Ferrari and us." So, what are your thoughts on Hamilton's disastrous Imola weekend? Is the pressure catching up with him? Is Verstappen gaining ground? Or will Ferrari maintain their lead when F1 comes to Miami? We'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to click the bell button to be notified of future videos.